Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thursday, and all today's guests, including Thomas Drance, I guess he's not standing by. We'll have an injury update from Thomas. He's got the ankle or foot issue, so we'll get an injury update from him on his way back from California. All today's guests brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Giants just announced their home opener Friday, September 20th against Seattle, 7 o'clock start. Season ticket packages now on sale. All season ticket packages include access to WHL Live so you never miss a game, as well as the first 2 home playoff games. Plus, flexible payment plans are available with no additional cost. For more info, email sales@vancouvergiants.com or call 604-4-GIANTS. As we join now from The Athletic by Thomas Drance. Thomas, thanks for doing this. How are you? How's the foot? You looking good?
Yeah, thanks. No, I'm doing well. Look, my foot's going to be a while. It is what it is.
You're on the injury list.
LTIR. It's long term.
Wow. And you have to drive back from California? Or has that happened already?
Down. My wife flew down, so she's going to drive me back from California this weekend. So that's why I'm on Thursday instead of on Friday, because
there you go.
We'll head back tomorrow.
Your wife has to drive you back from California? Are you driving a standard back?
I don't have a single ligament intact in my ankle.
Oh, okay.
Like I am mangled.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
As your producer helpfully put it, my summer is torpedoed, but that's okay. I'll be ready to go for training camp.
Well, you take care of yourself, but you're okay to do this interview, and that's that's the focus here.
Yeah, I need a helmet for this interview, not an ankle brace.
Oh.
Hey, your reaction to Filip Hronek's extension, first time we've had a chance to talk to you about it on this show anyway. 8 years, 7.25 AAV.
Yeah, it's a big number, both in terms of term and money. I think the truth of the matter is that Hronek obviously wanted to stay because, he had the leverage to push this further. No question about it, right? Like, even with how his second half went and his playoff performance went, this is a 50-point guy who logged top pair minutes. And one thing that they weight pretty heavily in arbitration is, an individual's impact to the success or failure of a team. And given that Hronek was this club's signature addition, and they went from being where they were to being a 50-win team, a division winner in the second round of the playoffs, he had the leverage to push this even further than he did. So it's ultimately a fair settlement, especially because it got done early, giving the Canucks some certainty. But, I saw Friedman report that Jacob Slavin, who's a top 10 defenseman in this league, looks like he's getting done at 6.5. So, that goes to show you, like, this is a fair deal. It's not a team-friendly deal. It's a big price. And that's not something that the Canucks will sweat, right? And this is really the lesson of Filip Hronek in general, right? Like, one thing that happened when the Canucks paid a first and a second to get Filip Hronek at the deadline last year was that a variety of other teams saw that market price and then were like, hey, Jacob Chychrun, he's now available, right? Like, teams liked that price. Sellers liked that price for defensemen in that range. That tells you that Vancouver paid a huge price to get him, and they're paying a big money or a big ticket on him for a long time to keep him. All of that sort of part and parcel with the same move. Now, this isn't criticism, right? Like, this is just me trying to be clear-eyed about what this club has done in terms of their approach here. They landed a difference-making player, and it worked, right? Hronek was a key part of what this team accomplished this year. Is Quinn Hughes winning the Norris without Filip Hronek on his right side? I don't know. Is this club winning 50 games without Filip Hronek on their top pair? I would say no. So, the truth of the matter is that if it's for the right player with the right set of skills at the right stage of their career, in that right window in terms of their age, this club's willing to overpay. This club's willing to overpay to find the players that they think, can put them over the top. I don't think Hronek was a piece to put them over the top. It was a piece to get them to within striking distance. But now, with what this club accomplished this past season, I think they feel like, hey, they're close. They can keep going for it. And I think this is a lesson. There's a lesson from this extension and the trade and Hronek's, 17 months in Vancouver that I think we should take to heart and sort of project out into this offseason. If it's for the right piece, if it's for the right player. Patrick Allvin, Jim Rutherford, they're willing to swing. They're willing to overpay. They're far more likely to worry about getting the right guy than they are to worry about the price tag.
You mentioned top pairing, and this was talked a lot about yesterday. You haven't talked about it with us. Can Filip Hronek drive his own pair away from Quinn Hughes?
Yeah, I mean, so, I first of all, I don't think it matters, right? Like, for me, what I think you're paying for, what I think you're buying in Filip Hronek is what Hughes and Hronek do together, right? And what Hughes and Hronek do together is outscore their opponents by 30 across all of last season, just at 5-on-5. There's unique chemistry there. I do think Hronek, in Quinn Hughes' words, gets Hughes 4 or 5 more touches a game. And that's 4 or 5 more opportunities for your best skater to make the difference between winning and losing. And you give Quinn Hughes enough touches, he's going to make that difference more evenings than not. So, first of all, I think what the Canucks have on their top pair works enough that I'm not worried about whether or not Hronek can drive his own pair long term. I think the way the Canucks view it, though, right, asking around in the wake of this deal, I think they view it as more of an aspirational thing. With Hughes, Hronek is going to defer to one of the best puck movers in the NHL and in the world in terms of moving the puck through the neutral zone, right? He's just going to go D to D, let Hughes cook, and then come support him in the offensive zone. There's a world where if Hughes or if Hronek was playing with a different type of partner, maybe he'd be counted on just naturally, stylistically, to try and do more himself. And I think there's belief within the organization that he could do so, that he could be the guy that drives. So I don't think it's a challenge so much as it's an aspirational thing. If this team could get to the point where they had other really good options, a more robust collection of defenders, more options to play with Quinn, could Hronek help or be part of the solution that levels this team up offensively on his own pair in a world where he was counted on to do a little bit more with the puck, a little bit more in transition, a little bit more of that driving from the back end. I think that's how the team views it. Now, we don't know, right? Like, we don't know because we only saw Hronek play games away from Hughes like 4 times all of last season, and it looked pretty good. Like, Hronek Cole had some nice games together as a pair. But 4 games doesn't tell us a lot, right? Like, we also saw some really good second pair games from Ian Cole and Mark Friedman, who the club recently signed. And, I don't think Mark Friedman was signed to play in the top 4 either. So, we don't know. But I do think there's internal hope that if this club can get to where they want to on the back end and continuing to upgrade the caliber of this defense core remains a priority, albeit not at the level of adding a star-level top 6 forward. If they can get to that point, I think there's curiosity at the very least to see if Hronek could be more of a driver. But it's an aspirational thing, not so much a can he or can't he thing.
Well, they got some issues still on the blue line, Thomas, because Myers could leave, Zadorov could leave. Then you got to go out and get guys to fill those roles. And as you know, on July 1st, Thomas, you got to overpay to get guys because there's going to be multiple teams in on them. Are you surprised we're almost in the 11th hour and Zadorov, Myers still not signed?
I'm not surprised particularly. I think it made sense to prioritize Hronek. Right, I was saying that right after the season. I was telling you gentlemen that right after the season. At the end of the day, what we're seeing with what Florida's accomplished with Barkov and Forsling on the ice, what we're seeing from the McDavid-Bouchard axis in Edmonton is you got to be able to win at the top of your lineup, and Hronek plays at the top of this team's lineup, right? Like, the logic of what this team can accomplish at the top end with Hughes, Hronek, Miller, or Hughes, Hronek, Pettersson, on the ice together. I mean, it's sensational. It's what drove this team to the success that they found this year. Balance mattered, right? This team was a balanced team. They had lots of depth. It mattered. You need to have enough. Need to have a solid enough team construction that you're not giving back sort of everything your top players generate. But Hronek was like a foundational part of what this team did, whereas Zadorov, Myers, the even Lindholm, like the other tier of guys, like they're part of the balance that this Joshua, they're part of the impressive balance that this club had, and they played huge roles for a team that exceeded all expectations. But I do think it made sense to start at the bottom, the base of the pyramid, and now you sort of work your way up. That said, I do think there's another base piece in this pyramid that's still, not found, that's going to have to be brought in from outside, and that's another star-level winger for the top six. So, given that approach, given the fact that this club really is prioritizing improvement as opposed to just getting the band back together, I think it makes sense that you're seeing sort of slow plays, long negotiations back and forth with Vancouver's pending unrestricted free agents. I think this club needs to have its eyes trained on, really leveling up, really bringing in some pieces that can, star level pieces, like that can change the complexion of what they're doing, and then sort of filling in your second pair, your third pair, your third line. And I think that's where their focus is. That's not to say that they don't want to keep these guys. I think they do, especially when it comes to, they kicked the can. I think on Lindholm, I think they were willing to go pretty high there, but I think they're willing to go relatively high on Zadorov and Joshua and company, Myers too. But those are unique pieces who had career years, and the market is going to be massive. There's going to be a ton of demand for their services, and I just don't know if the Canucks at this point are willing to pay market rate to keep those guys here. They're all well positioned, right? For me, this isn't a negative story, right? It's like you have a bunch of players who performed exceptionally well and are very, very well positioned going into July 1. The Canucks would love to keep them, and I think they're willing to. It's just, those prices might get a little silly, and I'm not sure if the Canucks will go there to keep those guys.
Okay, Thomas, very quickly, are your former employers in Florida going to finish off the Oilers tomorrow?
I'm nervous, man. I'm nervous, genuinely. Like, I think all the pressure now is on the Florida Panthers. I don't think we've seen anyone have a postseason like Connor McDavid has, in 30 years. I mean, this is truly historic stuff, like absolute GOAT tier stuff that we're seeing from the one-man offense that is number 97 in blue and orange. And I think the pressure's all on Florida. I mean, you saw Billy Zito's reaction. Bobrovsky has been poor in 2 consecutive games. And, at this point, although Florida, I thought, played better, like I thought they were pretty good in Game 5, good enough to probably win the Stanley Cup, they couldn't get it done. And now, if they lose one more, I mean, how tight are their collars going to be? It just feels like all the pressure is going to be on the Panthers. That crowd in Edmonton is going to be absolutely electric tomorrow. And like this would be a historic choke job if they can't win one more game. They're still just one win away from winning the Stanley Cup. But man, I feel like all of the pressure now is on the Panthers, and I'm not sure they have the answer to stop number 97.
Take care of that ankle, that foot, Thomas.
Safe travels.
Talk to you next week. Safe travels.
Thanks, boys.
You bet.